This is History Talks, a Room 107 podcast number one, with me, your host, Mr. S. We are broadcasting from atop the Llano Estacado in the heart of West Texas. We are coming to you from the number one school in LISD, a top school in the state of Texas, and a top school in the United States of America, actually. We are coming from Talkington School for Young Women Leaders. Joining me today on the inaugural History Talks podcast are two Talkington rock stars who have made this school what it is. It is an honor and a privilege to introduce two eighth grade U.S. history students of mine, Madeline McDonald and Lana Gable. Ladies, how are you?
Good.
So good. How
Y'all
are you?
nervous?
A little bit, yeah.
No, don't be. So ladies, first I want to do is kind of where I got this idea from, okay? The Lubbock community gets to see y'all in choir and orchestra. You get to do piano recitals. They get to see you in sports. They get to see your art shows, but the community does not get to see y'all talk history. And so I was like, how can we do that? And I was like, let's do a podcast. Let's see if this works. Okay. So we're going to try it. Initial thoughts. What did y'all think when I first asked y'all to do it?
I was really excited.
Yeah?
I was hoping you would choose me for the first episode.
Why?
I love history.
Okay.
I do.
That's good. What was your initial thoughts? Were you shocked, nervous, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it? What do you think?
No, I like performing and stuff, and so this was just kind of new.
Right up your alley a little bit.
Yeah.
Ladies, I had to have y'all two on. Since sixth grade, y'all have been the definition of what a history student is. And so y'all are when I first thought of the idea, I was like, them two, without a doubt. I didn't even think about it. Ladies, let's go ahead and get into what we're going to talk about today, okay? The first thing I want to talk to y'all about is this kind of overall, this 30,000 view question, this big zoom out question, okay? You have breathed in free air since you were born. You were born into the number one superpower in the world, right? You were born into a country where overall, we, the American people, we get along. We are neighborly. We're countrymen. We love each other. There's a bond between us. I've talked to y'all about the bond, right, since sixth grade. We live in relative harmony. We're at peace with each other for the most part, okay? But looking back, when we started diving into Civil War, sectionalism, today for us, 170 years ago, it seems like that's impossible. Like, there's no way the United States could break apart. There's no way we could kill each other over the sin of slavery. From your American citizen 2023 viewpoint, what was your initial thought about this time period?
I was at first really shocked about it that we could get this divided as a country. And it's crazy to think about. And we've come such a far, we've come along very far now, but also there's still a lot of sectionalism in the country.
You think so?
I think so. I think we could be heading down a similar path because a lot of sides are very, there's two very distinct, and they hate each other.
Yes.
And I think we need to come together again, even more as a united
I will
country.
say that when I grew up, I was born in 1985, so my childhood was 1990 to the year 2000. The 1990s were not like what y'all live in today at all. The stuff y'all hear about, the stuff people say, the culture, the music, the movies, I never had an experience like that at all. Mm-hmm. It was this patriotic, everyone just loved each other for the content of their character. We never talked about some of the disgusting things that everyone talks about today on a normal basis. Mm-hmm. So my childhood was not like what y'all are going through. Yes. And that's very sad to me. Mm-hmm. Lana, when we first got to sectionalism, Civil War, 170 years ago, what was your just initial thought, as an American living in 2023, what was your initial thought about this time period?
Kind of like you said, it was really hard to understand.
Kimberly Baxter, you're needed in the front office.
The joys of recording at a school during after school stuff. Keep going. Don't mean to interrupt you.
But it was really hard to understand that our country was so divided that they decided to separate into two, and that it was just so chaotic and overwhelming that they wouldn't even communicate with each other.
Right. We went to war with each other. We killed our neighbors, right? Does it seem almost fake? The Civil War is almost not real because it's so far away from us today. and we just can't imagine going through this, but they actually did. Does it seem real to y'all that this happened on a massive scale like it did?
I think it's really like a hard idea to grasp because it's not what we'd expect the United States to
Right.
do when they're united.
United
Yeah.
States, right?
So
Okay.
that's very, like, again, just shocking that that could happen.
Does it seem real to you?
I mean, like, the basic idea of it, like the fighting, it's like easy to comprehend, like it's easier, but like the actual fighting and like the going against each other, it's
I
mind-boggling.
mean, when we talked about Antietam, right? 23,000 American casualties. And I always make the point, we're not fighting Nazi Germany. We're not fighting Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the enemies we fight today. This is us fighting each other. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to even, as a history teacher, to think about. Okay, ladies, let's move to number 2.
Okay.
When we were in the 1850s, I made the point that this game of sectionalism, right, is going to be played by North-South, and then the game board is in the West, right? I'm also made the comment that the legislative branch failed the American people, right? The judicial branch failed the American people. The executive branch, until number 16, you know the guy I'm talking about, came along. We just had the weakest presidents. The legislative branch failed. They didn't get rid of slavery. Judicial branch, obviously, with Dred Scott, they didn't get rid of slavery. We have this amazing constitution, right, that sets up 3 branches of government, right? I mean, the Constitution, in my humble opinion, is the greatest freedom charter document of all time. How come the 3 branches were not able to solve this issue of slavery in an effective manner, do you think?
I feel like they just wanted to ignore it.
Ignore
I think they saw this big problem and they didn't want to like attack it, and so they thought it was better they just stuck a band-aid and hoped they would go away. But you can't really, like, if you're bleeding out, a band-aid's not going to do anything in the long run.
But why ignore, though? I mean, surely the representatives of the people thought the storm was coming, right?
Yes.
They could feel it, but they did not deal with it. Why do you think they just ignored it? Were they too scared? Were they not brave enough? Were they not capable enough? Like, what do you think? Why
I think
ignore?
it was a lot of fear, since
Fear?
especially the country, like, it was just beginning, and it was kind of like,
We're like in our teenager
yeah,
phase
you're
still.
growing into it,
Okay.
and they didn't want it to just all be for nothing.
Okay.
And they were scared they were going to lose that.
A lot of the branches failed the American people. They did not deal with slavery in an effective manner. Why do you think they could not solve this issue before Civil War started?
I kind of think that, kind of like what Madeline said, that they were just kind of being very indecisive because, you know, the legislative is like representatives from all over. And so it's like, I feel like they couldn't come to an agreement because, you know, the southern states were going to want the slaves, but then the northern states weren't. And so they were just kind of indecisive and kind of avoiding the conflict.
I just thought of this question. Let me ask you all this. Do you think the reason they couldn't deal with it is because representatives of the people, passing law, court decisions, actions by presidents would not deal with slavery? It had to be something more for you to rip the roots out. Do you think a law could have been passed to end slavery? Would it have worked? Or did something catastrophic have to happen to shake the country up and then to pull the roots of slavery out?
I feel like it might have been a necessary step because a lot of the time people were very stubborn. So I don't know if a law could have actually.
So you feel
ended the
maybe
problem.
that something catastrophic had to happen?
Maybe, I think so.
And I mean, I agree. Like, the states, if we would have made a law, it wouldn't have been the first time the states decided to ignore it.
Okay.
And so,
hello, Jackson, right?
Exactly.
The nullification crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be something deeper and more catastrophic to shake the soul up.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. This question is interesting, and if we can, let's remove the slavery part of this question. Now, I have right there, even if it's possible for us to do that, okay? The South, the Confederacy, as we talked about, will make legal constitutional arguments, right, about why they want to go. They're going to use federalism, right? They're going to use the 10th Amendment. They're going to even use Thomas Jefferson's alter or abolish clause in the Declaration. Again, removing the issue of slavery aside, if we can do that, Was their lawful legal arguments convincing? Do the states have a right to secede? Jefferson said, if the government becomes tyrannical to you, state, in your opinion, you can alter or abolish it. Was it convincing? Removing slavery.
I think legally they had the right to succeed, and some of the things said could be convincing. And like, they always had that right. If they felt they were being attacked, I guess
Okay.
they could have changed that.
Okay.
And the southern states really felt like the northern states were attacking their like rights and who they were,
Okay.
and they felt they needed to do something about that.
Okay.
I felt like they did have the right to secede, but I mean, I feel like their problems could have been solved in a more effective way because, like, nothing had actually been done towards the South. Like, there was no laws. It was just when they seceded because President Lincoln was elected.
Okay.
So I feel like they seceded, but it wasn't like a dire emergency. And so I feel like it shouldn't have been done, but legally it was allowed.
Okay. I just thought of a good question. And I told y'all since sixth grade that history class is like the one class where you can talk about controversial issues, right?
Mhm.
If you can't talk about current events and things going on in your life in the country, current event wise, in this class, you can't talk about it anywhere, right? And we've been doing this since sixth grade, okay? The fact that y'all just said that you think the southern states had a right to secede, y'all are going against Lincoln, right? He wanted union. He said the states had no right. Even today, when Americans who hear this podcast, right, when it goes out to the community, you're going to have people who hear y'all say that and they're going to go, yeah, I agree with them. Federalism, right? States' rights. Who gave birth to the Constitution? The states did, right? At the convention, right? They're the ones who ratified it. Okay, without the states, do we have a constitution then? No, we don't. But then you're going to have another group of Americans who hear this podcast who are going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Nowhere is it written that states can leave the Union. Lincoln fought everything to keep Union. What do you say to that? That y'all are going against Abraham Lincoln's idea of Union, and this is your opinion. What do you think about that?
I think it was very dramatic to
Okay.
leave the Union.
Okay, so you're
and-
saying you can't do it over flimsy
yes.
reasons. Like, I don't like the geography in Oklahoma. We can secede from, separate.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you mean?
I think there needs to be like solid, like if something crazy happened
Okay,
and it was like a dire need,
okay.
then maybe, but
Does that still apply today?
I think
Do you think states
I think
can
so,
leave the United States today,
if necessary.
if necessary? Lana?
Yeah, I feel like if it's like an emergency, like it's like the government is not doing what it was supposed to and it's not following the Constitution,
Okay.
then in the Constitution it says that states can secede. Like they do have that right. So I feel like
As far as you mean like federalism, 10th
Mhm.
Amendment. Okay.
yes.
Ladies, y'all see number 4 right there? So I said current event prompt 2 question, and I did not want y'all to prep for this one because I have something and I want to get your organic, your natural thought on this. Y'all ready?
Mhm.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, there was a discussion by a congresswoman, okay, and her name doesn't matter, her party doesn't matter. I know we're not getting into politics here, okay, but she said something about, and she used a term, national divorce, okay. She put this out on her Twitter account, and obviously it goes viral, right? It blows up, and so this polling company, right, that calls Americans right at their home, and you all know what a poll is, okay? So one of like the famous poll companies in the U.S. got Americans' response on this, and here's what they said, okay? And this company is Ipsos, and they're like a legitimate company, okay? They said 20% of American adults today believe in a national divorce. So 1 in 5 Americans believe in red states, Republican states, separating from blue Democrat states. Almost like secession. 1 in 5 Americans today. When you hear that, what do you think? Lana.
I think that's kind of crazy because
It is crazy.
we've been like united since the Civil War, and so like 170 years now.
Okay.
And so like to secede, I mean, we found a system that works.
Right.
Like we do have separate political parties, but I mean, we work together.
Okay.
So it's not like the Civil War, like we're not fighting.
Okay.
So I feel like a national divorce is kind of crazy.
It's crazy, right? Madeline, when I read that to you, 1 in 5 Americans today believe in a national divorce. And we can use a word that you and I use, secession, Republican red states separating from blue Democrats. And you go your own way, like a marriage couple, you divorce, you break up. What do you think about that?
Blows my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it really?
It does, because
Why?
I just think if you can't hear a difference in opinion and able to listen to it and be like, I agree with that, but also this is my opinion, and live together, and that's crazy.
It's
like
crazy, right?
You need to be able to have that ability to like be malleable in a way, and listen to other people, even if you don't agree with that, and come together and kind of, I guess not be equal, but like treat each other.
Respect.
Yeah, respect.
It's okay as a free human being, as an American citizen, to disagree with somebody, but you don't have to hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like if they had a national divorce, like the congresswoman was saying, well, I mean, if they separated, then there's also going to be like division within the separated parts. Like you're not going to live without division. So separating is not.
So you're saying you just keep breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Okay. And then what happens to the Constitution, to our principles as Americans after that?
Like we're not united.
Okay.
We're not.
13, 14 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 13? 14? Does this frighten y'all?
It does.
A little bit.
Yeah.
That your future, as y'all look ahead, 20% of American adults believe in divorce from states? Frightened?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me say a little bit of background on mine. When I was growing up, I would always see, not always, but sometimes in my part of Texas, you would see a bumper sticker that says secede. And they were talking about Texas only. Okay. Because Texas was its own country, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this history of independence. Texas was its own country. We don't need the United States, right? We have all the resources here. And there was this tiny little group of Texans that's always been around. Okay. Since, Texas was its own republic. They've always been around, but they were a small number.
Mm-hmm.
So you would see an occasional bumper sticker. And, when I would, we would roll, I was like, oh gosh, that guy's crazy. He wants us to secede from the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my Lord. But 20% of Americans feel this way. I don't know, y'all. A little frightening, right?
Yes.
Maybe?
Mm-hmm. Definitely,
okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to get y'all's organic thought on that, okay? Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned, okay, with that. Ladies, let's go to 5. Number 5, real quick. I have not been changing the show the whole time. Sorry, listeners. We're getting there. Ladies, let's talk about this guy, okay? One of my hopes in 8th grade, obviously, y'all fall in love with this one guy named Washington. Have I talked to y'all about him before in the past?
Maybe just a little bit.
Maybe just a little bit, okay. My hope is that you obviously see our scars on our history, but you also know how much good we've done, and how American history belongs to you. The Constitution is yours. The Declaration is yours. Lincoln is yours. Washington is yours. Our history is ours. What do you think about this guy named Abraham Lincoln? What are your initial thoughts about him as a man, as an American, as a president, commander-in-chief? Just your initial thoughts. What do you think about him?
I think he's one of the best presidents that we've had. And, just like the amount of, like the ability to bring these two sides together that hated each other and bring them back, that's like, it's honorable.
Yeah.
It is like amazing that he could do that. And he truly cared about the country. You can see that.
And he cared about both sides.
Yes.
And when we get to the surrender and the Civil War, y'all are not going to believe what he does. Mm-hmm. Your initial thoughts about this guy named Abraham Lincoln. What do you think about him?
So, I mean, in school and like history class, we've always grown up and like Abraham Lincoln is like such a great president, but like learning the Civil War and like what he actually did for the country and like listening to the Gettysburg Address, it like, I really have to agree because he did so much for us, and like like it's just mind-boggling, like how he was able to like care so much,
Right.
really.
I mean, this situation he's in, Liz, I'm learning more about Lincoln. I've put Washington to the side for a little bit, and I've been really diving into him. It is almost impossible that he did this. Like when you really dive into the facts, into what he had to go through, and how he is surrounded on all sides. And I'll explain a little bit in class. I don't want to give too much away, but it really feels like an impossible situation. And yet he does it, and yet he's there, and yet he wins, right? Pretty special guy. I don't want to give too much away, but whenever we get to his assassination and murder, it will be a tough day. Just so y'all know, it will be a tough day. Blaze, let's move on. Also, too, real quick, can we go back to the poll about this divorce poll? Lana brought up the Gettysburg Address, right? Lincoln said that it is up for us, the living, to honor these men and to finish their work we're in, right? If Lincoln was hearing that 20% of American citizens want a national divorce, are we living up to his Gettysburg Address?
Definitely not. I feel like he would be like kind of disappointed because I mean, like the American people are supposed to be united. And like
Yes.
that clip you showed us, like all the soldiers like knew the Gettysburg Address and like we know it and still we're contradicting it.
Okay.
You know? Like kind of like Washington's farewell.
Yeah.
Like we're just ignoring it.
Okay,
Basically.
interesting. And Madeline, you left a little bit. Did you hear any part of the speech?
No.
So you wouldn't be able to comment about the part of it. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
You got to hear the speech, by the way. Liz, let's go to number 6. Okay, I told y'all this nerdy thing when I found this quote. Okay, again, some guy named Washington. I'm sure you've heard me talk about him before. Not to toot my own horn, I know a lot about this guy, right? I know almost every quote that every famous American at the time had like talked about him, right? When they said that he's the father of the country, someone said that about him. We call him that now, right? He was the indispensable man. Whatever the country needed, he was there. I read that quote. When I first came across this quote that Abraham Lincoln made, I had never heard of. I almost fell out of my chair. Okay, that's how nerdy, dorky I am. Okay, but this quote is so powerful, and I'm going to read a part to you. Okay, so as you'll know, Lincoln gets elected, right? He's in Illinois. You can call it like his presidential train comes to get him in Illinois, and they're going to take him back for like a 13, 14-day voyage back to Washington, D.C., so he can swear in, right? Here's what he said. It's raining outside. It's cold. He has to put on this shawl, like this little blanket, as he comes out of the back of the train to speak to the people who've gathered one last time, to the people of Illinois. And he won't ever come back to Illinois alive. Okay. Here's what he said. And we did this in class, but I want to get y'all's opinion again. He said, quote, "I now leave not knowing when or whether ever I may return, with a task before me greater than that which rested upon Washington. Without the assistance of the divine being who ever attended him, I cannot succeed. With that assistance, I cannot fail." Blaze, in your opinion, we've talked about the revolution. We talked about Washington, what he meant for the country. Every time the country was falling off the cliff, one man is there to pull it back, right? One man is there, and that's Washington. Now we're at a civil war where the country's breaking itself apart. Who had the greater task, do you think, in making or saving the country?
I
What do you
think
think?
saving the country.
Saving the country.
Yes.
Why?
I think you mentioned in class when we were talking about this that it's harder to bring people together that hate each other than
Okay.
it is to like bring people together who have the same idea
Okay.
of being united and starting this new country, and it's harder to bring them together when they are so against each other at this.
So saving is harder than starting.
Yes.
Okay, Lana, what do you think? Who had the greater task on their shoulders? The GOAT, George Washington? You know what? And sometimes, y'all, as I dive more into Lincoln, I feel like I'm going to get struck by lightning because Lincoln easily, right? It could be number one. Okay. Washington's my guy. But Lincoln is 1B. I mean, if not tied, if not above. Lincoln's that great. What do you think? Greater task?
I have to agree with Madeline that like saving the country would
Saving.
be the greater task.
Okay.
Because like when Washington, like with the American Revolution, when we were separating from England's, like we were an ocean apart.
Okay.
And so like great like geographical difference.
Yep.
And so like when in the Civil War, like we're right next to each other. Like it's not gonna take boats and weeks to get across
Right.
to start a war.
We're in each other's backyards already.
Exactly.
Do you remember what Lincoln said in his first inaugural, that countries cannot pick up and move away from each other?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that what you're kind of talking about?
Kind of, yes. Like it's a lot more difficult when like you're fighting with your neighbor than someone across the street.
Okay.
So
okay, interesting. So Lincoln had the harder task. Y'all might be right about that. Y'all could be right about that. Awesome. Ladies, let's move on to number 7 here. Okay. In your opinion, in the 1850s, you and I talked about, Compromise of 1850, right? We talked about Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. We talked about Dred Scott. We talked about Bleeding Kansas. We talked about Pottawatomie Creek Massacre. We talked about all these things. Okay. In your opinion, was there a moment in time or an event where the United States reached a point of no return, where civil war was going to happen no matter what? We reached the fork. We went down the path towards civil war. What was that event, do you think?
I think since like the beginnings when they started making compromises to kind of solve this issue,
Okay.
like the 3/5 compromise, because it's such like a big problem that was in the United States,
Yep.
and once they started just trying to kind of cover it up and not kind of
There's a saying for that,
problem.
right? Kicking the can down the road,
Yeah.
right? Not dealing with the problem.
Mhm.
Okay, so keep on.
I think that's kind of when it was inevitable. Like you keep going and going, eventually something's going to happen. It's going to explode.
Okay. So you're saying all those compromises kind of put into one.
Mhm.
So the point of no return was honestly a long, long, long time ago then.
Yes.
Okay. Not in the 1850s.
Yeah, I think
Before
it was.
that.
Mhm.
Okay. Lana, what do you think? Point of no return. Was there one?
I kind of feel like the point of no return was the election of 1860 when Abraham was elected.
Okay.
Because like at that point, like they shattered, like it was shattered, like
Yep.
there was no going back
Okay.
at all because South Carolina seceded.
Okay.
So I feel like you could kind of definitely feel it coming before that,
Sure.
but I feel like once it was inevitable that we go to war, it was the election of 1860.
Okay. Awesome. Liz, let's go to your final podcast question here. Okay. What would you do if you were in the 1850s, before Civil War, obviously? Okay. If you were the commander in chief, if the American people elected you, would you have done something different? Would you have tried to prevent civil war by doing something specific? Would you have made this move and not that move? And give some evidence about your presidential plan. What would you have done, Lana, as commander in chief?
So I feel like Abraham Lincoln did do a really good job with what he had, and so I feel like that's like really hard to kind of.
But even
compete
maybe
with.
before that, like in the 1850s, like would you have tried to do something with the Dred Scott case as president? Would you have tried to do something with Bleeding Kansas as president? Pottawatomie Creek, the Compromise of 1850. Is there something you feel like you could have done or would have done? Like if you were in that time machine, gone back in time, drop yourself there and be like, okay, I will change this to see if I can redirect the country away from civil war. What do you think?
So what I would have tried to do like once all like the issues started like popping up again, I would have tried to like peacefully start like abolishing slavery. And so like I would have started with the North, and like they were all free states.
Okay.
And so I would have like banned slavery in them because they already don't have slaves.
Right.
And then I would have slowly tried to work my way down and like westward, and like get like kind of what I mean, like try to make them come together again.
Okay.
Not
come to the table to talk to you.
Exactly.
Let me play devil's advocate then. Let's say you start, like you said, slowly moving down south to try to abolish slavery. The states say no. They're not going to. What do you do as president? Do you go to war?
I mean, I feel like I would still try to like compromise and like slowly work towards it over time. I mean, I would try to avoid war at all costs because,
Okay.
like you said, the casualties were catastrophic.
Yes.
Like it was horrible,
Yep.
and so I would, if I was the president, I would avoid that like as much as I could.
Okay. Madeline, if you were commander in chief in the 1850s before Civil War, would you have done anything different? Would you have been at this event and have tried to change the course of the country, or what would you have done to try to prevent it? What do you think there?
I agree a lot with what Lana said, and I think the big moments for me that kind of like snapped the rubber band leading into Civil War were the Dred Scott case with the Fugitive Slave Act, and Bleeding Kansas. I think I would have done the best I could to change that outcome. Hopefully, it would have switched the path. And also, I think if war would have happened earlier, it wouldn't have been as bad because there wasn't as much
pent up.
Yeah.
So you're saying if Civil War would have happened or some sort of violent outbreak would have happened sooner, it may not have been bad. But like a volcano, like all that pressure, and right?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay, ladies, that is it for the podcast. First of all, thank y'all so much for doing this. This was awesome. What'd y'all think? We're nerves settled towards the.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all settled down good. I was nervous too. Don't worry. Thank y'all for doing this. I cannot appreciate y'all. There's no other two people I would want to start it. Okay, and I cannot wait to hear feedback of what people think. To hear this, such a good conversation. Cannot thank y'all enough for coming on. Final comment. What do y'all think? Final statement.
This was very fun. If you ever need anyone, like you can just invite me again.
Oh, back again? Okay. Episode 4?
Yeah.
Classmates might get upset. What do you think? Final comment.
I really enjoyed this. I love talking about history.
Okay.
Like I go home and I talk about history all the time.
Awesome. Did y'all tell your parents what we're doing?
Yes.
What was their reaction?
My mom was excited.
Was she?
Was like, you're going to have fun.
Yep.
You love talking about history.
What'd parents say?
My mom was like, this is really cool. This is very interesting. Like, you got to show me where it is so I can listen to it.
Did they? Okay, so I will definitely give y'all the link. When you told them that Mr. S is starting a podcast, what'd they say?
They weren't surprised.
They weren't surprised. Okay, nice. I'll take that. What'd they say? What'd mom say?
My mom was like, that's super cool.
It is cool, right? And some girls in our class snickered. Y'all remember hearing that? Like making fun snickering? They don't know. No, awesome. All right, ladies, seriously, thank you so much. And this was episode 1 of History Talks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.